Welcome back to McKiLL TV. Today, we take a quick look at an underrated gem as we look back on Murdered Soul Suspect. Murdered Soul Suspect is a third-person adventure mystery game with some stealth-based mechanics. A game developed by Airtight Games and was published back in 2014 by Square Enix, and the game released on PC, PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4, Xbox 360, and Xbox One consoles.
Watch it, lady.
The game takes place in present-day town of Salem as a serial killer that goes by the name of the Bell Killer begins a murder spree of seemingly unconnected victims. The game's protagonist, Detective Ronan O'Connor, is set out to track down the Bell Killer, but at the beginning of the game, Ronan is thrown out of a window of an apartment building and shot to death as he lies in the streets of Salem. He then seemingly wakes up to the realization that he is now deceased and is a ghost who is stuck in somewhat of a purgatory state. In order for Ronan to move on to the afterlife, he learns he must reunite with his wife Julia, but in order to do this, he must first solve his own murder case and identify his killer, with the help of Abigail, a ghost child. Ronan then embarks on a quest to solve his own murder case with his newfound ghostly abilities. The player then takes control of Ronan as a spirit, which makes for an interesting premise for the game. The game is played in a third-person perspective as the player navigates the game's main protagonist, Detective Ronan, around the town of Salem, uncovering many truths along the way. There are multiple areas to explore in the game, such as the apartment building, the church, the graveyard, and the police station. The player will complete these differing levels of the game to progress the game's story. Along the way, Ronan will come across ghostly messages and various different types of scraps of paper that contain differing information about Ronan's life as the game progresses. Since the player is a ghost or spirit, it will have some interesting abilities, such as the ability to teleport, walk through walls, and possess most NPCs in the game, as well as the ability to possess animals, more specifically a cat, which will help the player navigate different areas of certain levels throughout the game, with each level having several clues to find and uncover in order to progress. The game isn't really action-oriented, it's more of an adventure exploration style of a game, as the game's gameplay focuses on puzzle solving, uncovering clues, and an investigative style gameplay that uses stealth mechanics, as Ronan will come across demons that roam the town of Salem looking to snatch wandering souls, such as himself. Throughout Ronan's journey around Salem, he will come in contact with other spirits, which he can choose to help them in these side quests in order to help the other spirits move on to the afterlife. As the game progresses on, Ronan will come in contact with a living girl named Joy. Joy is a medium who can not only see and talk to Ronan, but can also see the other spirits in Salem as well. Ronan then sets out to help Joy find her missing mother, which becomes one of the main plots in the game. Ronan insists on helping Joy even if she doesn't seem to want his help. Ronan believes she can help him navigate the physical world and ultimately help him track down his killer. The game centers on its story, as it makes that the highlight of the experience in Murdered Soul Suspect. So I'll keep the story at a basic summary, as this game was probably overlooked upon its release, so I encourage you to go play this game if you haven't, and I won't spoil any more of the main story. Upon the development of Murdered Soul Suspect, Square Enix wished to make a game that would appeal to Western audiences. Yosuke Shiokawa, the creative director at Square Enix, came up with the wild idea of a game that would have the player take control of a ghost as the main character. As he pitched this idea to Airtight Games, Airtight then began coming up with many concepts surrounding the ghost idea, some of which were silly, or even more superhero-like stories. According to Matt Brunner, as he mentioned in an interview about the game, he noted that Shiokawa was inspired by watching the movie Die Hard, and asked himself, what if John McClane died? Would he give up, or would he continue to try and save the people at Nakatomi Plaza, including his wife, which led to the initial concept of the game. At first, the team struggled with the idea of merging Western and Eastern philosophies in regards to ghosts, in order to make a game that made sense in that regard. Developers would later state that they kind of had to learn as they went with this idea.
If you care about the case so much, find your own damn clue.
You won't find your mother without me.
What?
Looking back at this game, one of the main reasons I feel this game was overlooked by many was its overall reception, as the game was met with mostly average ratings by critics. Most criticisms centered around poor combat and stealth gameplay, as well as the game's overall length being too short of an experience.
Not talking to each other. Got it?
The game was also criticized
Case is crawling with
for this lack of replay value to its mostly linear main story arc. IGN gave the game a 5.5 out of 10, calling it mediocre experience overall, but noted that the game had some great concepts, but felt that they were overcooked and underutilized. With GameSpot's review being slightly less negative, giving the game a 6 out of 10 as they praised certain aspects of the story and gameplay, noting that at times the game overall, the direction was sort of ludicrous. It does a good job at drawing the player into wanting to see the story unfold. A game that you'll find yourself raving about at moments and dragging it through the mud at other moments. Personally, I would mostly agree with the criticisms of the game's replay value, as this game is best experienced upon an initial playthrough, but once all the tricks have been revealed and the story unfolds, there's nothing really too interesting left. I played this game back in 2015 or so, and haven't played it up until doing this video for the gameplay. And I will say, after not playing it in so long, I enjoyed it again, but quickly remembered many of the main story beats as I went along. So this is a game you would really want to maybe experience once, and I would encourage anyone to go buy and play it, as it is available across most platforms, as I see it pop up as cheap as just a few dollars. Ultimately, this is a game with really cool premise, and I would call it an overlooked gem to some degree. And if you're a fan of noir style storytelling and adventure exploration style gameplay, you would probably appreciate this game for what it is. It is a middle of the cut game and one that relatively short, but I wanted to look back and talk about it because I just feel people didn't give it a chance. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed looking back at Murdered Soul Suspect. And if you did, please pop that like button down below, as it always helps my channel. And if you're interested in looking back at more games, be sure to go subscribe to McKiLL TV, as we continue to cover games like this and more. But until next time, this has been McKiLL TV, and I'll catch you in a future video.